Let's go to Jorge Montepeque in Singapore. I think Jorge has been across Asia. I thought he was in China this week, but Jorge, of course, Managing Director of Benchmarks at Onyx Capital. Jorge, what's the latest from Asia? Some sort of mixed messages. You're seeing the stock markets there also doing very well, but and then the same token, we're hearing about shortages of significant note in Pakistan, blackouts, India closing factories, and so on. Where is there one narrative across Asia, or is there just many pictures? What's the state of play in Asia 2 months into this crisis?
Well, I think in all of these discussions, we need to focus always on the facts and not on what the politicians are saying. Otherwise, we're going to be very misled. So what is happening? For 2 months now, supplies from the Persian Gulf or Arab Gulf, depending how you want to look at it, have been constrained. And they remain constrained. There are now effectively 2 blockades, but the 2 blockades are very leaky. There's a lot of oil and products still coming out, and I will explain how this happens. And nevertheless, on a net basis, the world is very short. So we have all been very surprised that the futures price has been sub 100 or something like that on some days, and finally it crossed 110. And by the looks of it, it will continue going north into the expiration because the physical price is closer to 145. And if this situation continues, it will exceed 150 because the world is very short. But it's not as short as it looks. This morning, to give you the latest, this morning I was getting information from various sources in the market that Abu Dhabi is, ADNOC, is trying to sell or position crudes of upper Zakum, which are inside the Gulf, outside of the Gulf. So they are selling them on a ship-to-ship basis offshore Fujairah, outside of the Gulf. So how did these vessels get out? We don't know precisely the details, but these vessels got out. And this is happening on both sides of the Gulf. The ships can sail very close to the coast of Iran or Oman and UAE, and then onwards onto the coastal waters of Pakistan and India, and off they go. And the U.S. Naval Force can monitor as much as it likes, but once the ocean becomes too wide, too broad, and these ships don't carry any AIS, maybe they can catch a few, but a few are going to get out. And the Iranians have the same problem, because they cannot monitor every single vessel that is crossing. So there is, I wouldn't call it substantial, but there is a significant amount of oil that is getting out. And this results in the world not being as tight as it should. So if somebody tightens that blockade further, then the situation will get worse. But as it is very bad. And then the US, and I'm just giving you the latest, this is not so late, but 3 days ago, then also sanctioned Hengli. Hengli is, according to, again, many market sources, has been somehow or another a recipient through various hands of maybe blended Iranian material. And they can say, we didn't buy Iranian, we bought something else, some blended material. And yes, but they got sanctioned. And
this is the China's big teapot refinery.
Say it again, please.
I say that is one of China's largest teapot refineries, Henley.
Yes, precisely. 400 kbd, fairly new, and even the Saudis have a supply contract into them. They wanted to buy a part of that refinery, and the question now becomes: will the Saudis not sell into Hengli and into China if there are further sanctions? So I talked to some of them yesterday, as it happens, and they told me very bluntly, a contract is a contract. And that, in the way I understand that, is we will supply China. If they have a contract, we'll supply to them. And that positions the US in a very uncomfortable situation because then they would have to sanction Saudi Arabia for breaking the American sanctions. But the American sanctions apply to America, they don't apply to the world. They only apply to the world if the world decides to accept those
Well,
sanctions.
I suppose they
And
apply. They apply if indeed you want to access dollars, which is their big stick, is the ability to
exactly.
exclude you from the dollar profile. Jorge, your thoughts on where is China in all this? The idea that, I mean, the pain is being felt in different places in different ways, but Asia, most notably, China, somewhat insulated with its large inventory build. Where is China in this? Not using much muscle, it would appear, to sort of force a change, certainly not in public, but from a supply demand point of view, they seem to have a bumper quarter with exports. Do they have concerns growing?
Well, to clarify, I am in China at the moment.
Oh, you are? Okay. So
So
we
I'm,
had
obs-
this. Yes. Okay.
so
Thank you.
I'm observing China from within for
Yeah.
the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I would say the following, both for China and Iran, as it happens, it's a question of time and pain. Iran can sit around, drink tea, and wait until the wheels come off in Europe, in Asia, and the Americas. Wait until the farmers say, where's my fertilizer? Why can I not plant what I wanted? And that pressure is also building in the heartland of Trump's land right now. And meanwhile, here in China, they have a lot of crude inventories. They're not releasing them because those inventories in the reserves are for the real confrontation with the US. They are preparing themselves for that. So they allow the refineries to release commercial reserves. But at the same time, they didn't allow the retail price to rise as much as the international price has risen. So the margins for the refineries have contracted, and they're not willing to run those commercial inventories as hard. At the same time, China forbade the export of products, and they're a major supplier of products across Asia and the world, and they forbade the export of any non-contractual additional exports. So where are they right now? The inventories have risen in products. And as of today or tomorrow, we'll see an announcement, or this week for sure, by China that they will allow exports. They have too many products inside. So they're sitting very nice and pretty. And you can go to any city, and I'm right now in a city in the mountains called Lijian near Kunming. So many cars and so many vehicles operate on electricity. So they can weather this storm better from a
They have
consumer point of view
they've seen
than
their
anyone else.
we've seen their gas LNG imports drop quite dramatically in recent weeks. Is that seasonal? Is that choice, or price is too high? What's the?
They con- sorry to interrupt. They
Yeah.
continue to bring new coal plants, nuclear plants, and also renewable plants all over the world, all over the country. They're just massive in the amount of power they bring in. They bring every year the same amount of power as a major European country has in its totality. So over time, the role that LNG plays is decreasing in their energy supply. So they have become, strangely, a supplier of LNG in these tight times. Can you imagine that? So
Let's
it's just the ability to have a lot of electricity produced domestically from alternative sources.
Jorge, I wanted to get just a few full closing comments from you, but starting with, you're obviously in China, and a China, as you describe, in a fairly healthy place. Economic forecast for the year, sort of at that 4.5% space. No stress yet in oil and energy supplies, but the bigger picture of things, the trade surplus with China is still massive. 1.2 trillion last year. the first quarter again, although March seemed to slow a little bit, but ultimately still massive. As you go around China, are people consuming? Are they buying, fancy cars and all of this wealth? Or is it just this big effort for consumption to become part of the equation here? Your thoughts on that development? Because without it, I think there's going to be a lot more stress in that global relationship. I just want to get your perspective from the ground.
Well, what I can see, and as you said, on the ground is yesterday, I was returning to the city I'm staying in after being in another touristic city. And the observations are filled with domestic tourists. It's just filled. And there are so many hotels, so many nice places to stay. And I would say that domestic tourists are about 98%, maybe 99%, the occasional foreigner there. And in the right back, we were admiring a Xiaomi EV that was driving along our side in a busy street. Very nice shape between a Porsche and something else, really, really nice EVs. So are they spending their money? Yes. If you go around the town where I am right now, Lijian, everybody that is in the age of getting married, it seems to me, is trailing a professional photographer, videotaping the ladies primarily, and taking photographs of them, and then going to restaurants and posing here and there. All of those things cost money. So do I feel that on a dollar basis, they're spending more than the Westerners? No, because things are really cheap here. But on their local standards, they're really having a grand time. So their domestic internal economy is good. Having said that, unemployment for the young is very high here because everything is being automated. They're in another level in terms of electronics and programming and all of that.
And AI.
So the need for manpower is less than it used to be.
I know that one person who would be sort of upset about the lack of consumption would be the German Chancellor Merz, because now Germany or China is exporting something like 8 million cars a year and importing half of the number of cars it was 5 or 6 years ago. From the German point of view, I wanted just to segue. That's my segue to the second sort of question. I saw posted on your LinkedIn as well. Merz barking at Trump. That was something I wouldn't have predicted. Following Maloney, so he's late to the barking space that has been set up by the Spanish Prime Minister. Your thoughts on what that reflects as to where this goes and what it means maybe for finding a solution in the Gulf?
Yes, the two most affected parties in the war are the countries around the Gulf. They're really, really suffering from the lack of exports, lack of tourism, lack of cash flow coming in, and the countries that depend on the products generated from those areas and the crude. And that means Europe, because Europe is in a vice between the Russian sanctions, the American sanctions, the European sanctions, is they're just strangling themselves. And their economies are going to reflect that. So on an order of magnitude, Europe has been suffering for longer than anyone else. Now is the time for Asian countries to suffer due to the lack of flow into them from the Gulf. And America, of everyone, is the one that sits the prettiest in terms of energy because they can export and everybody wants what they have. So maybe Merz is finally waking up to the fact that by being too close to the US, he is actually a victim. And the country's economy is being victimized in the altar of Trump or something like that. So he's lashing back and saying what nobody wanted to say so far at that stature, that the Iranian military humiliated the US military. So he wants an end to this. And he's saying an end is difficult, but he is putting it on the front page as he did.
He is. And surprisingly, even with all of that, piece by piece is the answer in this room. The most likely pathway to a peace deal is piece by piece, which seems to be what the Iranians have offered. And then the Americans are now coming back saying, no, no, I want nuclear in the box. It seems to me America, just for the reasons you articulated there, Jorge, have no great motivation to see this end anytime soon. They just seem to be winning on so many fronts, and the stock markets keep hitting records. It's hard to see why they would change this picture right now.